to SQLearn for organizing this in Mintra, and thank you all for taking the time to come here and listen to us. So, I'm Kostis and I'm representing RightShip in the region since 2022, and still going strong with your deep love and affection. So, let me just let's look at some trends related to our industry. Okay, 2025 data, 4,500 of incidents reported to our platform, including 232 fatalities. And of those 4,500, 1,300 were pretty serious. So there's still quite a long way to go. If we look at, just look at the numbers, I mean the proportions, look at the proportions. If you look at the gas sector and at the tanker sector, and then you look at the bulk carrier sector, you see that in all three segments of incidents, fatalities, and PSC detentions, we have 2 to 3 times larger numbers in the dry bulk sector. Okay, that's another thing to keep in mind. Also, we can see that there are some different points of view. 73% of the charterers claim that safety records and investments in risk reduction solutions significantly or critically influence chartering decisions. And 73%, the same number of owners and managers, claim that they exceed compliance and safety. And in 67% in crew welfare. At the same time, 60% of the charters say that due to commercial pressure and tight profit margins, this restricts their ability to choose over a high ESG standard. And 53% cite short deadlines or urgent delivery demands. Okay, so this is the environment. So what do we have? We have a supply chain with different stakeholders, different priorities and requirements, and little time for fast decisions. And at the same time, this is on the backdrop of economic pressures and legacy constraints. So, some of the acting forces at the moment are the geopolitically driven induced disruptions, which end up in longer voyages and high people risk. The seafarers' availability and quality. We have a shortfall of 100,000 officers for our industry in the immediate future. That's a very big issue. And at the same time, ports and terminals are tightening the controls and try to standardize due diligence and pre-arrival data of the ships. This is what we see. So the takeaway from this is that actually the winners are those who can demonstrate control clearly, consistently, and early. That's what we understood through our interaction with all the stakeholders. So what good looks like in this high-pressure system? Owners and managers, they have to demonstrate readiness, not reactivity, agility, consistency, and focus on high-risk controls. And the charterers have to have clear expectations, explainable decisions, proportionate response, and earlier assurance. The shared outcome is fewer delays, lower burden for the crew, and more predictable commercial outcomes. Now, what do we do in RightShip? We are a platform where we combine data, in-house and outsourced expertise, technology and partnerships in order to provide a due diligence process to the charterers. So, let's see what is a RightShip inspection. RightShip inspection is a risk-based inspection regime. So the purpose is to identify safety, environmental, operational risks that may not be fully captured through statutory or class surveys alone. So I have to remind you that RightShip was created on the back of 6 very very bad incidents around the coasts of Australia, where 100 seafarers they lost their lives. And the Australian government performed an investigation, which was dubbed the Ships of Shame. And this investigation concluded to the following: that the minimum requirements of flag, class, and insurance are necessary, but not sufficient conditions for quality of ship management. And the second thing was that the charters, at least in the dry bulk sector, they had a very narrow view on the risk they undertake when they fix a ship. They were concentrating on the object vessel rather than the rest of it. And the rest of it is the people on board and the people ashore, the management. Okay. So, what do risk-based inspection regimes do? They try to identify systemic and operational risks beyond minimum statutory compliance, as I said, and address gaps between documented compliance and actual shipboard practices. And this is where we have usually the problem. And promote continuous improvement in safety, environmental protection, and risk management. So, what is RISQ 3.2? Is used by RightShip inspectors to conduct, it's a questionnaire, first of all, a questionnaire with a guide to inspection attached to it. So it's used by our inspectors to conduct objective, uniform, and systematic shipboard inspection. Okay? And it's a compilation of industry regulation and industry standards, that's the differentiator by a class or a statutory inspection, and recognized recommendations. So you see, you have 2 layers. You have the regulations, which is the minimum standard, and then you have best practices and recognized recommendation. And that it's designed to assess actual shipboard practice and the gap between the documented SMS procedures and real shipboard implementation. That's the main thing, that's the point. So, some questions that people tend to ask me from time to time, so I compiled some of them here. What is the process of selection of new inspectors, and what is the training process? So the selection criteria is in accordance with the training, test, and accreditation guidelines. Include training delivered through an online LMS with about 40 training videos, assignments, written, and oral exams. And participation in accompanied inspection. So the new inspectors are accompanied by seasoned inspectors as a guide. And of course, we audit them from time to time on board. And they have to go through refresher courses every 3 years. So that's one question that I get very often about our inspectors, and here's the answer. How can ship managers give feedback for the inspectors, and how this feedback is used? After the inspection, you get an automated email where you have a link to provide feedback. The second route is through an email to risk@rightship.com. And we conduct reviews of feedback received, and the negative feedback is always investigated. Okay? And we follow up both with the operator and the inspector. Unfortunately, we don't get very often feedback. I mean, and we encourage everybody. Everybody of you who know me, you know very well that I encourage feedback, because we really need it. We cannot act unless we have feedback from your side. And how are we auditing inspectors? We perform internal audit prior to accreditation, random audits, and in response to negative feedback, as I said before. What about the reviewers? Because the inspector is registering the findings, but the decision is made by a reviewer within RightShip. So what about those guys? We audit them prior to accreditation. We perform random audits, conducted in accordance with the audit plan that we have. We have minimum 2 weeks training with a senior superintendent or line manager to ensure consistent approach, and we provide some guidelines, and we audit them from time to time by randomly check on their reviews of the inspections that they perform. And the reviewers are trained to tag each finding with a risk level. Okay, medium, low, high. And this is achieved through a structured trickle-down training approach from the line managers with a guideline. That's how these guys are trained. So about their accreditation, they have oral and written exams, and about 11% fail in the oral exams, and about 28% or 1/3 fails in the written exams. So it's not easy. Okay? We have a network of inspectors all around the world, about 240 of them. Whatever is orange is where we have inspectors. And this network is expanding by the time. Now, let's look at the data related to the inspection. The value proposition of the risk inspection is that it reduces risk. It prepares the crew, because crew gets more aware, more prepared, more trained. It's an independent view on the vessel by a third party, which is useful for the operator or the owner. And the inspections are comparable data points. They're not like a portion control inspection where every regime has a different, let's say, approach or framework, or even different inspectors have different framework. And what I've compiled here is some data. 2025, all bulk carriers and general cargo vessels above 14 years of age, which is the bulk of the vessels that we inspect. These are 27,752 inspections on 9,549 ships, with average deficiency of 3.5 and 5.8% detention ratio. The vessels that they had at the time of the inspection, they had, of the port safety control inspection, they had a valid RightShip inspection, they had 1.9 findings. That's half of the average of the group. The vessels that have never been inspected by RightShip, they had 4.6 findings. That's a lot more. And the vessels that have been inspected by RightShip but had an expired inspection, 2.2, still less. So yeah, we know what's going on with port safety control. I was also managing ships. I was not always with RightShip. I was managing director of a shipping company. I know what's going on the port safety control. It's not always a clear game. But looking at 27,000 or 28,000 inspections, it's a large number. And large numbers tend to tell the truth. It's a statistical reality of this. So there is some value. Now, let's look at 3.2. How did we arrive to the 3.2, from 3.1 to 3.2? We consulted 22 industry associations. Especially here in Athens, I organize once a year a weekly, full week discussion. I bring the head of inspection from Australia, and there are people from all the companies, and we discuss the inspections. And this is where we get tremendous feedback, okay? And this feedback influenced the new version. So we received 242 feedback points from this seminar, from other engagements, and from Intercargo. This feedback was an engagement with 550 owners, ship managers and owners. And we received feedback either through structured discussions or through direct email at the RISQ mailbox, which you can always do, and please do. So, that's the process with appeal. What are the elements of the key, let's say, elements of the new RISQ? It's enhanced. It has a bit more clarity, safety and regulatory alignment to different new regulations that are coming, and best practices. There is more emphasis on training, stevedore safety, and environmental systems. And it's feedback driven, as I said, and on the back there is Annex A, which shows you all the differences from the different versions. And it has also hyperlinks in the industry guidelines that these are the constituents of the new RISQ. So you can find immediately the regulations and the standards. Now, 5 key changes. Stevedores. initiated by an incident on a very bulk vessel. And it's all about how to monitor the stiff door operations on board. And we collaborated with some Greek operators to understand the nuances of the stiff door practice, etc. I'm sure everybody, you have in your mind Posidonia and some crazy places like that, which are difficult to handle. Enclosed spaces, typical issue. High risk, it's very high risk because we have many casualties still. And the IMO resolution on January 26 clearly states that the content of training and clears the gaps of previous resolutions. So we follow that. Safety officer inspection, it's a crucial role, so we elevated this role inside this version of the RISQ. And we ask a specific checklist to be available for the safety officer according to the standards of the company to check accommodation, main deck, machinery spaces and forecast areas. And the aim is to identify issues. Okay? Superintendent inspection by 2 disciplines, marine and tech, every 6 months. We look for a systematic inspection that improves the system and must generate a report. The fact that somebody was on board doesn't really give the full picture. There has to be a report which generates something. Okay? And the stop work authority. These are the 5 main changes. All right? Another thing is that the time on board was reduced by removing 30 questions. The average time we expect that's going to reduce by 2 hours. We started the inspection, the new 3.2 in force was end of February, so we still don't have enough data, but it looks like the average time is dropping, and I will show you that in a moment. So, for the future, we are looking to change the architecture of inspections in order to reduce the time on board. Because for us, and for the whole industry, a very important issue is the burden on the crew. And we want to do something about it, and we're looking at different ways to do that. Already, if you do hybrid inspection, which means that you upload 67 documents before the inspection, 30 of those documents can be reduced on the next inspections. So you don't need to upload them every time, and we don't need to see them again and again. So it's done. So this is already in force. Now, let's see some data to identify trends and recurring observations. So these data refer to 5,700 inspections, February 25 to February 26. And these inspections were done over 950 different companies, vessels by 950 different companies. So, standard inspections were performed, there were 4,534 on ships by 832 different companies, with average findings per inspection of 19.5 and about 14 hours average inspection duration. The hybrid inspections were on 1,200 vessels about for 380 companies, average findings 18.3 and about 11.3 hours average inspection. Now, so we have done in between February, if you see the square at the middle, February 26 to early May 26 or now, the period of, very small period of RISQ 3.2, we performed 1,457 inspections. And you see that the average findings per inspection dropped to 17.3, and the average hour of inspection dropped to 12.77. Out of the inspections of last year, the 5,000 inspections. 93 of the inspections were rated acceptable, and only 7% of the inspections were rated unacceptable. Most of them happened in discharge operations, some of them in loading, bunkering, and other activities. So, 45% at that time received 12 months validity, 12% 3-month validity. 81% received from 6 months and above. Okay? Now, sometimes people tell me, you know, we small companies, we cannot, we are dry bulk operators, pure dry bulk. I remember I had a friend, he has 3 ships, and he was scared about his first inspection. And I told him, don't worry, you're a good company, you're going to manage well. They did their first inspection. 4 low risk findings. Small company, 3 vessels, family company, down in Piraeus. Their first inspection, 4 low risk findings. A medium company with 15 bulkheads. Again, a friend of mine, the managing director. Scared. He sent me messages, we are ready, we have taken a shower, and all these jokes, you know. They had their first inspection, 17 low risk findings. These are pure dry bulk operators. What does this tell you? It doesn't matter whether you're small, big, medium. If you are prepared, you can do it. No problem. No problem at all. And I see the other side, people that they haven't had any inspections, pure dry bulk operators. They call me at their office, I explain to them what they have to do. They kick the can down the road, and they have their first inspection, 40, 50 findings, failed inspections. You know it's coming. So, just be prepared. Now, getting prepared, what does this mean? Remember, what is risk? It's a risk-based inspection assessing shipboard operations and goes beyond the regulation and includes best practices. So, don't think that because you follow the regulations, you can perform well on a risk-based inspection. It's comparable to CDI or SIRE, not to PSC or class of flag inspections. Okay? Very important is that, okay, the procedures are documented, but has to be followed. I mean, for example, we see very often enclosed space entry. People have ticked the whole form of the permit to entry, and they say, for example, we have measured the atmosphere, but they don't have equipment to measure atmosphere, but they tick the box. That's a big issue. That shows that it's just a game, it's not really a, yes, okay. When I was also managing director, I had the following strategy. I was saying, okay, whatever it's useful from the regulators, we have to adopt. Whatever we have to do, but we're not really in a position at the moment, we have to manage it, and then it's okay, we don't do it. Whatever it's science fiction, we don't do it. But some things which are very essential, you have to do it. So, how do you prepare? Update your SMS procedures to align with risk. Train the crew. The biggest, you tell me, Kostis, easy to say, but difficult to do. I understand. There are means, like for example, training material by SQLearn or other companies, etc. You can do that. There are ways to do that. Okay. And ensure spare parts availability, maintenance, and adopt the best practices. So, we have to remember, RightShip is looking at 3 pillars: people, plant, process. I don't have to tell you why we have to look at people. Okay, this is very important. I was telling my seafarers, you are the company. I'm just a signature. You are loading the vessel, you are navigating the vessel, you discharge the vessel. I'm just a bloody guy with a suit putting a signature. I'm nothing. You are the company. So this is very important. And when I was going to visit my vessels, I never paid attention to the vessel because I've seen the vessel by reports, pictures, superintendent visits. I didn't care at all about it. I knew the vessel. I wanted to see them to understand what they think. Okay, that was the important thing. Plant. Okay, yes, the people are on board. When you see insulation soaked by oil, or cordoboning the pipes, etc. You understand that the culture on board regarding maintenance is very low. And why procedure matters? It's not the paper exercise, because I know very well that very soon an AI system will prepare all the forms for the contract of the captain. Then the oiler from the engine will come and just make them dirty with his hands. So when the inspector comes on board, they will say, oh, very good, all the forms are here and they have been filled during the job. Everything is fine. So we're going to have the battle of AIs. Well, the problem is that, for example, if, let's say we have a form for working a loft, and it's not filled right. But then you have to ask the chief officer, the boss, okay guys, how did you organize that? Did you discuss, did you have made a risk assessment before you did this very dangerous work? That's the main thing. So, how do we prepare for RightShip inspection? Safety officer inspection, the safety officer on board. He has to be trained using risk-aligned checklist to inspect the vessel. The superintendents, they have to do the same thing and prepare a report. Internal audits by the company, use elements from risk requirements in your audit checklist. Arrange in-house training. As I said, there are many possibilities to arrange training now. And start your preparation at least 1 month before the inspection, especially if it's the first time. Okay. Application time frame. Recommended 14 days, but you can do it even 7 days before. You receive reminders at 60 days and 30 days. And you can do hybrid inspection or standard inspection. That's the main thing people use. The hybrid is about 8 to 10 hours, and the average about 10 to 12 hours. How the validity of your inspection is being calculated? What is validity for the people that they don't know? Because it's a risk-based inspection. Depending the nature or the severity and the number of findings you have, the next inspection will happen either in 12 months if the inspection is very good, the results are very good, or in 9 months if they are good, or in 6 months if they are average, or in 3 months if they are not so good. And sometimes if there are very serious issues, the inspection can fail. So what affects the validity? The total number of findings, the quality of the closeout documents, the investigation that you do, if you use 5 whys, things like that, preventive, corrective actions, the severity of the findings, and until recently, and there will be an announcement this week, there were some findings which are considered showstoppers. I mean, το gela delta δεν έχει φουγάρα, something very serious, for example, okay, that will render the inspection unsuccessful. So we cancel that, no more. We rolled out this practice enough time to understand that this poses some commercial issues to the operators, so we decided to just name those high-risk findings. Okay, that's a good news. So let's look at the sections of risk that generated the highest risk number of findings. Okay, ship-to-ship operations, section 17 accounts for 17% of the findings. Okay. Now, if you look at the tanker industry, which is highly regulated, especially in this matter, in the S2S, we still have very high number of incidents. Imagine what can happen in what is happening in the dry bulk industry, perhaps. So there is an initiative by Intercargo, which was supported by RightShip, in order to develop the code. I think we'll have the opportunity to discuss a little bit further that down the road. So implement the advices implement the intercargo ship-to-ship transfer guidelines for bulk carriers, ensure vessels are properly prepared for inspection if they intend to participate in or already involved in STS operations. If you haven't done any, if the vessel has not done any STS operations or is not, they don't intend to, there will be no discussion about that. As this is a specialized area, consult subject matter experts where required in order to prepare for that plans, etc. For any questions, please contact RISQ email regarding that as well. Now, Section 14, general appearance, 10% of the findings. Condition of deck lights, portable cargo lights, deck piping systems, weather, watertight doors are usual things. Again, about 90%, 99.3% were at ISM, pilot ladder, gas burning and cutting controls, life water rescue boat, PP matrix, enclosed space entry, safe means of access. Section 3, navigation, 8%, master pilot exchange, maneuvering characteristics, master standing orders, parallel indexing, defective navigation equipment, inadequate passage planning, and bridge manning levels are usually the findings involved. Hatch covers, Section 9A, and lifting appliances, 8%. So safe operation of hatch covers, condition of quick acting cleats, including washers, and condition of rubber sealing arrangements. Usual things. Section 10, mooring operations, 7%. Compliance of mooring lines, condition, winch breaker rendering tests, selection of stoppers, and securing of lines. Section 13, machinery, 7%. Engine room cranes and other lifting appliances, plant maintenance, workshop condition, insulation, maintenance of auxiliary agents, matrix, and record keeping. 7A, fuel oil management, 6%, analysis, banking procedures, and bunker line pressure testing. Section 2, certification personnel, 5%, class surveys, work and rest hours, drug and alcohol, and training for including the safe handling of solid bulk cargoes. Now, let's look at the top 10 high risk. Enclosed space, the largest, winch break rendering, work and rest hours personnel, permit to work, lockout, tag out, inadequate position fixing, correct or low parallel indexing, insufficient and calibrated personal gas detectors, means of access, lack of underkill clearance calculations and aircraft procedures, poor or defective condition of life posts, life rafts, etc., and condition of boilers, air compressors, air conditioning, refrigeration systems. The red ones are the really serious ones, and the rest are less serious. Enclosed space entry, winch break, lotto, gas detectors, and means of access. And the rest are, let's say, of less severity but high risk as well. Look, these were the showstopper findings of the last year. But forget about it, no more showstopper findings. So let's go to the next one. Closeouts, what we look for. People ask me about that. Closeout reports from RightShip are required for incidents, posted controls, feedback reports by terminals, and RightShip inspection findings. What we want to see is that the fault has been corrected, the fault will not occur again, and similar faults will not occur again. Very simple. And they should include root cause analysis, preventing, linked to each other. Good preventive actions means that there is a responsibility shared between the ship and ashore. It's not only the ship, okay? The intention is not to blame the ship all the time. So there has to be some shared responsibility with the shore. They have to cover, the preventive actions have to cover process, plant, and people. So all three pillars of the system. That they have a lasting effect, and that will prevent similar issues. What that looks like, for example, you have this situation where the crew were observed working oversight without a fall protection of buoyancy ends, and you receive something like about the root causes, human factor, crew involved in gangway rigging not use the required fall protection equipment while working outside ship's handrails at height, blah blah blah. Organizational factor, on-board supervision not effectively verify compliance with PPE, etc. And system factor, familiarization and practical enforcement with PP matrix were not sufficiently embedded in routine deck operations. If you look at these causes, they're all ship focused. Nothing for the office. All it's about the people on board. As if they are the only people that have a problem. Okay? Preventive actions. All crew to complete the refresher training. Masters and chief officers to verify fall protection element. A fleet safety communication to be issued. Where is the shared responsibility? Where is the future protection? What about the process? Or what about protection for other activities? Okay? Why routine structural inspection do not adequately identify deterioration of the gratings, okay, or at the crane? Why defects were not noted? Why other access controls in place considered okay? Why inadequate risk assessment applied? Why risk perception is too low? Very important. People have to understand the risks. If they don't understand the risks, then we don't have anything else to talk. That's the main thing. PMS did not specifically highlight close monitoring of crane access platforms, because PMS tasks were too generic. They were not ship specific, for example. So, root causes identified were safety awareness and plant maintenance system. Okay. Root causes, preventive actions. Further instruction provided support leadership team. Okay. Risk assessment training to be revised, safety officer training supplemented, PMS tasks were made more specific, and PMS permission and task amendment procedures revised. That's okay. That makes sense. So, summary. What is a good closeout? The fault has been corrected and evidence of correction is included. The fault will not occur again. Preventive actions that address shared responsibility, future protection, processes, and protection for other activities is included. And similar faults will not occur because preventive actions are based on effective root cause analysis. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.